Good evening and welcome to the City of Warrenville Community Development Committee of the Whole regular meeting on Monday, July 12th, 2021. Deputy Clerk, could I please have the roll call?
Mayor Brummel?
Here.
Alderman
Here.
Ashour?
Here.
Alderman Berry?
Here.
Alderman Davalos?
Here.
Alderman Goodman?
Here.
Alderman Krischel?
Here.
Chairman Widener?
Here.
Alderman Wilson?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. And now that I understand we have a quorum, we also have a member who is requested to attend electronically, and that is Alderman Anderson. Alderman Anderson, are you with us this evening? Can you hear us?
I am, Alderman Widener.
Okay, thank you. And we, I guess, need to be sure that the member is deemed authorized to attend the meeting electronically, and unless there's a motion objecting to Alderman Anderson's electronic attendance, he will be able to take part in all aspects of the meeting. Are there any motions or anything like that that would prevent Alderman Anderson from participating this evening? Okay, seeing none, welcome. And will everyone please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now's the time we set aside for citizens' comments. We'll hear any verbal or written comments as usual from the public and any citizen that may have be on the phone. As I understand it, no one present this evening wishes to make public comment. And as I understand it from talking to Deputy City Clerk Gravetti, there were no email comments submitted. And unless we have someone on the phone this evening, I don't think we have any comments, so we'll move ahead with officials and staff comments, beginning with the mayor. Mayor Brummel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one thing this evening I wanted to highlight in our packet the economic development activity reports supplied by our Economic and Community Development Director, Menser. Again, a very thorough summary of what's going on and very, very positive and encouraging. All of the major developments that are in progress are doing well, approaching completion. And there was very little to disappoint, but a lot to be happy about. So I just wanted to highlight the fact that things are going well in Warrenville, that we're on our way back from the pandemic slowdown, and things are looking good.
Thank you. And I guess now that we're all together in person again, we can just simply raise our hands, and if we've got any comments to make as Alderman. Alderman Goodman.
Yes, I want to announce, as many of you know, we are moving forward with Summer Days this year. Summer Days is going to take place out here in front of City Hall, August 6th and 7th. That's a Friday from 5 to 11. And then Saturday, there will be the car show in the morning and entertainment in the afternoon, again, going to 11, as well as food and business booths. So I'd like to encourage people to come and gather safely outdoors at a distance and enjoy the music and the activities and kids' entertainment and being outside with your friends. I think it's going to be a great event, and I'm so happy we're able to, kind of at the last minute, based on what the gathering rules have been, we're able to pull this together, and the Park District is taking the lead on this. The city is also one of the sponsors for this event, so those of us on the committee who are helping out are going to try and help this whole process go smoothly, and we're hoping for a successful event this year.
Fantastic. Thank you for the update. Are there any other aldermen that have comments this evening? Alderman Anderson, anything?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Widener. I just one comment. I just wanted to share with all the city council folks that my work situation has changed some, which while I'll be home pretty much each week, during the week on Mondays, I will be traveling. And that's why the electronic process. I regret that. I so wish to be sitting next to everyone. I think it would make it would be far more enjoyable than staring at a computer screen. But I appreciate everyone allowing me to participate, and Administrator Coakley and council helping to make this work. So thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you and welcome. Okay, if we don't have any other comments, we'll begin the business of the meeting. And this evening's first agenda item is the consideration of a carnival permit application for VFW Post 8081 property at 3 South 371 Main Street. And Community and Economic Development Director Ron Menser will introduce this topic. Good evening, Ron.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, City Council members. I'm going to begin by introducing the city's relatively new planner GIS technician, Andrew Kiefer, sitting to my left. Andrew's been with the city for just about 2 months, not quite, but just about 2 months now. He took the position that was vacated when our former planner GIS technician, Lauren Whetstone, retired or resigned earlier in the year. Andrew is a recent graduate of the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point, my alma mater, and has a degree, Bachelor's of Science degree in environmental and urban planning. Has some experience working in local government, had an internship with Carroll Stream, and became very highly recommended from staff at Carroll Stream that he was fortunate to work with last summer. And Andrew actually is the individual in the department that has been interacting directly with the VFW folks and the amusement company that's proposing to conduct the carnival on the VFW property. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew to let him give you a brief summary of what's being proposed in the staff review and recommendation on it.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to meet you all too, if I've yet to meet you. So, but as Ron said, I was tasked with facilitating the first item on our agenda, which is a request for a carnival permit located at VFW Post 8081 at 3S371 Main Street. The applicant, William Johnson from Fantasy Amusement Company, has requested a permit for the proposed carnival at this location. The event is to take place August 26th through 29th, and as stated in the attached operations plan, the applicant's proposed hours of operations are Thursday from 6 to 10, Friday 6 to 11, Saturday 6 to 11, and then Sunday from 2 to 6. The proposal is wholly sited within the VFW's private property, and as such, there's no planned use or closures of any public streets. Pursuant to Section 317 of City Code, no carnival can be operated in the city unless a permit is granted from the corporate authorities. As such, we are seeking the committee's recommendation on the proposed project for the City Council meeting on July 19th. Staff initially received the application in June, and members from the administration, finance, community development, police, and public works reviewed the application. We then solicited an operations plan and an updated site plan, which are included in your packets. So based on staff's collective review, staff is recommending conditional approval, subject to the list of conditions attached as Exhibit B to the July 6, 2021 staff review memorandum, included within your agenda packets. Additionally, staff is recommending the reduction of the hours of operation to 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturday after consultation with the police department. At this time, I can take any questions you may have. We also have Sandy Rothstein from Fantasy Amusement Company, and then we also have Larry Berger from VFW who could field any questions that we cannot.
Great. If we have any questions for the petitioner, they should come up to the microphone, the podium over here, and state their name and business and answer questions from up at the podium. Okay, any aldermen have questions or comments? Alderman Goodman?
I don't have any questions, but I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I will make a motion to recommend City Council approval of a carnival permit for the VFW property located at 3 South 371 Main Street, subject to the various conditions and requirements outlined in the July 6th, 2021 Community Development Department staff memo.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I overlooked our electronic guest, Alderman Anderson. Did you, I didn't happen to look at my screen, Alderman Anderson, to see if you had any questions or comments on this agenda item. I apologize.
No, I support the motion.
Okay. My only question is, in the documents, I saw there was a contact with the Warrenville Police that was identified. Is there someone from the VFW who's going to be also listed in case there's questions or concerns that they will be able to answer questions from their side of things, since they're kind of the host of the carnival?
Do you mean if is there a representative here this evening? I'm sorry.
Well, that's, I guess, a question too, but whether or not they'll be listed on the permit or something like that. I know there's going to be, the police will be listed, and there'll be a contact from the police in case someone has a emergency or a question regarding the operation of the carnival. And I thought that since the VFW is hosting the event, that there might be a representative listed. Did I overlook that?
At this time, it says just the carnival operator. They're the ones who submitted the permit application.
Okay.
However, I mean, that could be
Yeah.
changed.
I think it would be good to have some representative from the VFW since they're the property owner, and that's just my opinion. I've never worked on a permit with one of these, but in case, there's a issue with the property, it might be good to have an emergency contact listed from the VFW. And then I guess my only question before going to a vote on approval for this is asking the petitioner if all the employees will be wearing that business uniform on site at the carnival.
Sure.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, hi, my name is Sandy Rothstein. I am office manager for Fantasy Amusement Company. And to answer your question regarding the employees, we do have uniforms for them as well as ID tags that have their name on there.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that's all I had, and
Okay.
with that, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is consideration of Evelyn Eve temporary use permit application for one-year anniversary event at Stafford Place right-of-way. And again, Director Menser will present this agenda item, or introduce it, I should say.
Yeah, I'm going to present this one. So back in kind of the middle part of May, the owner of Evelyn Eve Wine Shop, Monica Lefevre, submitted a temporary use permit application to the city that, if approved, would allow her to close the dead-end section of Stafford Place located east of Warren Avenue for one day to conduct a one-year business anniversary celebration on that section of roadway on Friday, August 13th from 2 in the afternoon until 10 o'clock in the evening. The road would remain closed until about 10 o'clock the following morning to allow for cleanup and takedown of the event improvements. The scope of the event involves a large tent that would have tables and chairs, and all of her, or most of the vendors that supply product to her store would be providing samples of their products that would include alcoholic beverages that are sold in her store. There would be up to 3 food trucks that would be located within the event space. Last time we heard from Monica at the Plan Commission meeting, she's still trying to track down and pin down some food truck vendors. So not sure how many ultimately will be there, but the request is to have up to 3 of them. There will be a band that's proposed to provide entertainment from 6 till 9 in the evening that day. The band would be located at the very east end of the event space. And there would be bathrooms, portable bathrooms, 3 of them, that would be provided along with garbage service from the vendor that's going to provide the tent for the event. According to the zoning ordinance, temporary use permits, temporary use permit requests such as this that involve the closure of streets and the serving of alcohol require Plan Commission review and ultimately City Council approval of the permit in order for it to occur. Just as was the case with the carnival permit application, staff across all departments from the city had an opportunity to review and provide input on the request from Evelyn Eve. We had a number of follow-up conversations and a meeting with Monica to discuss in more detail some of the details of the event, the scope of the event, and some of the operating procedures and controls that would be put in place. Based on that review and the information that we received, city staff is recommending approval of the temporary use permit application, subject to the conditions that are captured on Exhibit B that was attached to the July 7th Community Development Department Plan Commission staff report included in the agenda backup materials for this evening's meeting. The temporary use permit application materials were reviewed by the Plan Commission at last Thursday's meeting. The Plan Commission recommended unanimous approval of the temporary use permit, subject to the same recommendations that are recommended by staff. I'm available to answer any questions that the council may have regarding the scope and of the staff review and the details of the staff recommendation. And I know Monica's here to address any questions you might have for her regarding the scope of the operation or how she intends to manage the operation.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the alderman? Alderman Barry.
I do have a question about the businesses and the people that live in the building, especially the businesses. Have they all agreed to the operation of this on that Friday? Because obviously most businesses are available on Friday in the afternoon, possible early evening. I don't know about the bicycle shop. I mean, their business is impacted by this. So have they agreed to this in writing?
No, we haven't had any direct contact with most of the businesses. I have had conversations with the owners of the bike shop, and they have no objection to the event. There is a private parking lot on the side of the building that, as it's proposed, would be reserved, and certain spaces in that parking lot would be protected for the use of the tenants and the businesses that operate in the building for that one day.
Okay, so that parking lot is going to be restricted for the
It would
businesses
be
and the
protected so that it
tenants?
wouldn't be filled up with just event users. There would be some spaces that
I'm
would
sorry,
be.
I'm not hearing you. What?
It would be protected, so they're going to have it cordoned off so that it would be, there would be some reservations, some protected spaces in there for the business uses, whether that's the tenants and or visitors to those businesses.
Okay. I guess I just have a problem with not knowing if all the businesses are okay with this, closing the street down permanently for a full day.
Yeah, I would imagine that there's going to be one business for sure that's not going to be in favor of it, based on some of the interactions that we had with that business owner in the past. So I don't think, if you're looking to get full support from all the businesses and tenants in that building, I think that's unlikely.
Okay.
Other questions? Going once. Oh, Alderman Anderson. Do you have any questions on this matter?
I support the staff recommendation.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, then it'd be great to entertain a motion. Alderman Davalos?
Yes. I move to recommend City Council approval of temporary use permit for Evil at Eve Wine Shop's one-year anniversary celebration event on the dead-end section of Stafford Place, subject to the event being conducted in accordance with information and staff recommendations contained in the July 7th, 2021 staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there's no more comments, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the motion carries, and we'll move along to the next agenda item, consideration of staff and work group recommended redesign options for the Trailhead project. Public Works Director Phil Kukler will present this item. Hi, Phil.
Thank you and good evening. Consistent with Senior Civil Engineer Hocking's schedule that was presented at the May Community Development Committee meeting, the recommended redesign for the Trailhead project is included with the agenda backup materials. Staff met with the work group on June 14th to develop the recommendation. Initially, we started with 2 options for locations for the restroom facility and 2 options for locations of the heritage display for the Illinois Prairie Path. The recommendation that came out of the work group is to relocate the restroom building with a reduced pavilion area to the east side of the parking lot, which if you're standing on Stafford Place looking at the parking lot across the street here, would be the right side of the parking lot and fairly close to Stafford Place, just kind of in line with where the existing sidewalk is on the north side of Stafford Place. The location of the Illinois Prairie Path Heritage Display is kind of the northeast part of the project area, which if you're familiar with the area closer to the intersection of Batavia and Butterfield Road, there's an existing drinking fountain over there and there's a large information board. And the heritage display would be generally between those 2 landmarks. And there's a concrete pad with a existing bicycle rack and a large pine tree that are really mark about where the location of this would be in the future. So that pine tree would come down, the bike rack would be taken out, and this heritage display would be constructed there. This was developed collaboratively between staff and ComEd staff. Christine Hocking and I met with a couple of members from ComEd to discuss the easement area and the restrictions out there and pick 2 spots that would be viewed favorably by ComEd. So we met out there twice with ComEd to discuss these areas, went through their concerns, and arrived at these 2 locations. So we expect ComEd to support an application when the time comes to construct these improvements in their easement. Director Menser and Senior Civil Engineer Hocking also went to the Park District Board meeting on June 17th to present the recommended design, and as I understand, the board had no objections to the recommended relocation of these items. The Illinois Prairie Path Board also has no objections to the location of the heritage display, and the schedule for the project that Senior Civil Engineer Hocking presented back in May remains the same. The goal is to have construction started by March of 22, and based on Illinois or IDOT's kind of set schedule for bidding, that would mean a bid opening in January of 2022. Now, the challenge with that process is going to be ComEd's lengthy review time. We've got assurances from them that they're going to do their best to expedite the review of it, but they have a 90-day review time on this, and in order to make this work for a January 22 letting, we have to have them get that done in about 45 days or so to be able to fit with IDOT's deadlines. So they're going to work with us, but there are no guarantees they'll get it done in 45 days. So in the event that they aren't able to get it done in that time frame, then we would push the bid letting to April of 22 with the intent to construct in the fall. So after like summer days and that, so we wouldn't disrupt the events during the summertime. The estimated cost is reduced by about $100,000 with the revised design elements, and that's primarily because the pavilion area for the restroom facility would be about half the size it was originally proposed at. So instead of being able to fit like 4 picnic tables under it, now you'd be looking at a covered area that would fit 2 picnic tables. And that would fit better. It's part of the reason that we went with or recommend a smaller pavilion areas to not eat into that green space that's located on the east side of the parking lot right now, and preserve some of that for use by people. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Phil. Glad to see this project coming together after its many challenges. Questions from the alderman? Alderman Goodman?
So I'm sort of, comparing this concept drawing to the last one to see where things were and how they've been moved. The butterfly garden is sort of where the restroom building used to be.
Yes.
But it said that the butterfly garden couldn't be near the ComEd structure. So, I mean, I guess it's all a question of what you define as near. Are we sure that they're okay with this location for the butterfly garden?
Yes, that was one of the items we discussed on site with ComEd. And we also made it clear that it's a butterfly garden with plants that are designed to attract butterflies. It's not going to be a wetland area that would have some sort of restrictions associated with it. That if they happen to have to come out there and do extensive work, if they disrupt the butterfly garden, then the city would just be responsible for replanting it if it didn't come back. Their
Okay.
concern with the butterfly garden and some of the rain gardens and things like that was they don't want standing water. They don't want something that might eventually involve like the U.S. Army Corps, where there'd be restrictions that they would have to work on and extra permits they would have to get. So that's why those items were expressed as concerns initially. The butterfly garden is something that when Christine and I met out there and talked about possible locations with it, that specific spot was acceptable to them.
Okay, but the size of the butterfly garden seems to have been cut down significantly, if I'm,
I think it would be about the same size. I mean, it's not, it's just a concept plan at this point to show where it would be at.
okay, so the idea would be for it to be about the same size?
Yes.
Okay, it's not exactly the same scale, so maybe I'm not judging it correctly. But the restroom building, I still see sort of 2 picnic tables denoted in this little box, and the other building had 4 picnic tables shown in the little, so it's still pretty sizable. I mean, a picnic table is pretty big.
Yes, and the building itself, there'll be still the structure of the building itself will still be the same with the 2 restrooms and the utility room in between. It'll be the overhang area, the pavilion covered area that's cut in half from what it was proposed before.
Okay, so how much, one thing that sort of strikes me is how much extra pavement it looks like there's going to be in this. They said that they wouldn't allow any trees. So sort of one notable feature of the old design was a lot of new landscaping, and I was picturing lots of flowers and very attractive new trees in some places. Are we just also, I mean, the one thing that you've sort of noted to us about the difference in price is $100,000. I assume that's mostly reducing the size of the building.
Mm-hmm.
But what about landscaping? We're also doing quite a bit less landscaping, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, there'll be a savings there as well.
Okay, so, I mean, I was really excited about lots of flowers and lots of butterflies, and, Warrenville and Bloom clearly wants updates and wants to be involved in helping figure that out. I guess, what do I tell them? If I'm going back to Warrenville and Bloom to discuss this, how would you describe some of these changes so that?
The thing ComEd, I mean, as you noted, was most concerned about was trees, because those could eventually grow up into wires. They could also get in the way. They're not things that ComEd could drive equipment over and that kind of stuff. They were not as concerned about the flowers and things like that. So we're going to work with the engineer and Hitchcock Design Group to develop a landscape plan within the parameters that ComEd set for us. So I don't know how, I don't know how that's going to turn out exactly, but I would expect if there would be a similar amount of flowers and lower growing items in there. You wouldn't have a rain garden and a place where water could collect. That was an absolute no as far as ComEd was concerned. But some of the flat surfaces, again, for an area, if they had to lay out some of those large timbers to drive their heavy equipment over, that might destroy flowers, but it doesn't get in their way. So it would be okay as long as we understand it's our responsibility to replant those areas if they don't come back. And we're not going to we're not going to envision ComEd being responsible for that in some way. They're okay with things like that. They just don't want a lot of vertical change and things that would cause issues and be interfering with their use and be able to get their equipment to maintain their facilities.
Okay, so even though the sketch that we have right now from an engineering perspective may not reflect it, we're going to be landscaping the heck out of this as much as they'll let us?
Yes.
Okay.
And the intent of this, we needed to get something done quick with the engineer. So the important items, locating the restroom facility and locating the heritage display, and then even the butterfly garden, some of the bigger items, to just give everybody an understanding of where those items would be, so we can then move forward with redesigning the final design on it.
Okay. The heritage display, it's also not quite so clear to me on this picture where the tracks are. There's sort of, you know, on this other picture, you can kind of see there's a circle. Well, yeah, that's just the same as it was before. I'm talking about this. So it has kind of like the tracks going off on one direction. Is it going to be on the sidewalk on one of these diagonals in the picture?
Ron, did we talk about that being on the diagonal heading out?
Well, that's my question, 'cause I mean,
As
is
I
it
understand it
on
from
this
the
one?
meetings that I've been involved with,
Tracks and not just a
the,
circle.
Now, hold on a second. We got some side conversations going. I want everyone to be able to hear your answer, Director Menser. Go ahead.
so as I understand it from the discussions that I've been involved with, which have been relatively significant over the last month and a half, is that section that is on the angle between the Prairie path and the round area of the heritage display is the area that would have the track designed to it, which is a stamped concrete type product. It's not a like a paver brick product. It's a stamped concrete, which is perceived to be likely in the long term more durable than like a brick paver element.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other questions from any council members? Alderman Anderson, you have anything? Okay,
I do not, thank you.
thank you. And as I understand it, the architectural appearance will still please Alderman Wilson, who is in favor of bringing the old type of railroad station architecture into being with this project. So wanted to assure you that that element is still part of this project.
I appreciate the fact that it's still there. To me, it's very important for the remembrance of what Warrenville was at one time. And it's so important to realize that and continue that. So thank you very much for putting it there, and thank you.
Do you care to make a motion regarding this item?
I would like to make a recommendation the city council approve the preferred trailhead redesign options as illustrated in the agenda backup material.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, no. Motion carries, and we're on to the item number 4, consideration of Trailhead Project Final Engineering Contract Change Order Request. And again, Public Works Director Phil Kukler will present this item. Phil?
Thank you. And now redesigning the Trailhead project requires the design team to redo the plans and specifications, which they provided a change order for that work on the amount of $31,416. Staff has reviewed the request and believes it's reasonable based on the effort that's needed to make the changes to the bid documents. Even with the change order, though, the overall costs for the project are estimated to be reduced by $70,000 when you take into account the estimated $100,000 reduction in construction costs. So there will be a reduction to the overall project costs still. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I do not see any. Alderman Anderson, do you have any questions?
Nope, no question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if not, Alderman Wilson, would you like to bring a motion forward?
Well, I had just one question concerning the remaining schedule as it's outlined here, you know. Is this pretty much what we can look forward to? so far as the July 12th here and the 19th, and actually begin construction in March of 2022?
As long as ComEd can expedite the review process to allow us to meet IDOT's rigid schedule for bidding. So if ComEd's able to get their review done in 45 days, which is what we've requested, then yes, we can, that's what we anticipate doing. If ComEd takes closer to the 90 days that they typically take for the review process, they have several divisions of ComEd that have to review the plans, so, or review the submittal. So we've talked to a couple of them so far, but there are still a couple of others that are involved in the process. And similar to here, when we receive applications from developments, it really depends probably on what's going on and what's in the hopper at the time for them. If they've got several other projects to review, we kind of, we're in competition with those projects. If it's a little lighter time frame, then they might be able to jump on it a little bit quicker. But so if they're closer to that 45 days, then yes, we plan on starting construction in March. If not, then it would be a construction probably in the fall of next year.
Well, I'm looking forward to that construction starting in 2022. Based upon that, then, I'd like to make a recommendation the City Council pass a resolution approving a change order with Engineering Resource Associates, Inc. for final Phase 2 engineering redesign of the Trailhead project in the amount of $31,416.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. But before we leave this topic, I would just like to express my gratitude for all the staff that came together. There were a few dark moments with regard to this project when Commonwealth Edison changed their mind about some of the elements that they had previously approved. And there was a lot of concentrated effort to ensure that this project go forward, and that began with Administrator Coakley. I know Mayor Brummel was very much involved in discussing things with Commonwealth Edison representatives. Director Menser, thank you. Director Kukler, thank you. And certainly Christine Hocking, civil engineer, really had to do a lot of the work to make this project fit and provide the alternatives that were necessary in order to make it go. And the consultants were all very helpful. Everyone was really working hard to try to see this project become a reality. And I would just like to express my gratitude to all of them. And I'm sure I'm missing some people that were very much involved that helped to bring this project back on track, so to speak. So thank you one and all for all your efforts in making this a reality. As of next March, I'll be glad to see it break ground. And I understand Administrator Coakley had a comment he wanted to make.
Thank you. You just did a great job. I wanted to make sure that everybody got acknowledged. I'll say I helped initially convene parties getting together, but all the work has been done by our staff. The mayor added some mayoral gravitas to, in his own way, encouraging and adding the, legitimately, the community interest in this whole project when we met with some high-level folks from ComEd. Some of that was already scheduled, and we used that meeting as an opportunity. But all the hard work has been done and by Phil and Ron and Christine, and I rarely leave the building during the day, but in the cages I have, they're outside. We've gotten the ComEd folks to come out and meet on site, which was essential to helping them understand what we're trying to accomplish. They kept saying, well, just redesign the plans and resubmit them. It's like, can't keep spending money to redesign plans. We thought we already did that. And I will give credit to ComEd. We found the right folks to help work through their process. They're a very large public utility, regulated utility, and they can be very rigid in their processes. And they have multiple overlapping divisions, which we've never encountered that working with them in decades before. Usually it's a simple street project, or we've worked with the county with some simpler projects right out here. And this one really, Alderman, Widener, you put it very well, became very, very dismaying and disheartening, and it was almost immobile wall for a while. But our staff did a great job. And again, some kudos to ComEd. Some top people have been out there on very, very hot and sometimes rainy days, meeting with Christine and Phil and others. And our community too should get some credit. The work group, the community input group, I know I had the wrong term. Some of you have been involved, was very helpful in understanding the dilemma we had in working with us, our staff, to get this revised design. I think it looks awesome and possibly might even be better than the design we had by circumstances here. So I just wanted to make sure, and again, thank you, Alderman Widener, you did a good job of expressing that. I didn't want to let it go by because they already had full-time jobs, and then they had to back up and redo a bunch of the work that we had already done, and it's come out really well. Thank you.
As you were talking, I also thought of two other partners that we had in the project that we need to thank, and that would be Sid Kenyon with the DuPage Department of Transportation, and Rob Spurl, who was representing the Illinois Prairie Path. You know, again, this project was made stronger by the many partners that we had involved, and perhaps, you know, Commonwealth Edison was witness to that too, and that certainly helped move the project back into the proper phase. So thank you, everyone. Moving on to item number 5, consideration of staff recommendation to create and fill Assistant Community Development Director position in lieu of the vacant Senior Planner position. And Community and Economic Development Director Ron Menser will present this. Ron?
I wanted to start out by just providing a bit of context to the significant amount of succession that has occurred recently in the Community Development Department, is ongoing, and is likely to occur, well, inevitably going to occur in the Community Development Department in the foreseeable future. So over the last 7 months, 4 of our 9 full-time employees have either retired or resigned. Collectively, those 4 individuals had more than 30 years of experience working for the city, and collectively more than 75 years of experience in municipal government. So there was a big loss of experience and knowledge with those individuals. More importantly, though, for tonight's meeting and discussion is, you know, what's happening going forward. And right now there are 3 additional long-term employees in the Community Development Department that collectively have over 50 years of experience working for the city of Warrenville, who have reached a point in their career that they can and will likely retire at some time in the very near future, and near is relative in my mind. You're talking about 56 years of experience, probably sometime in the next 1 to 3 years. And that would include me. There's no doubt about it. Every time you lose long-standing experienced employees with an organization, it goes without saying that, you know, there's some loss of knowledge, institutional knowledge, I should say, experience and leadership that happens. That has been the case, and that will continue to be the case in the Community Development Department in the foreseeable future. Talking about it with senior staff and the city administrator, we felt that one of the best things we can do planning for that type of transition going forward is to make a recommendation to the city council and ask for the city council's support for not refilling the existing vacancy that we have in the senior planner position, and instead create and recruit and hire a new assistant community development director that ultimately will hopefully smooth out the transition going forward. We feel that the benefits of creating that position is we'll probably be able to attract more than likely be able to attract a more highly qualified candidate to come to the city of Warrenville, somebody that's looking to make the next step in their professional career. You know, a senior planner in another community would likely be attracted to that type of position and opportunity in Warrenville. It would also give us an opportunity for the long-term tenured employees, both in the department and throughout the city's organization, to pass on important institutional knowledge and experience to that person, to help mentor that person on the culture of government in Warrenville. Doing government right is local government, small town government right, as the mayor likes to say. There's the city or the community development department, as you know, has a wide breadth of responsibilities. We are responsible for providing input on the development of a wide range of not only regulations but policies that the city uses to support good decision-making going forward. And it would certainly be valuable to have some overlap with somebody that will have a leadership role in that in the future. And then finally, last but not least, having the ability to hire that type of person at this point in time would give the city senior leadership team, that is, more time and opportunity to assess the strengths and weaknesses of that individual, create and implement a professional development plan that will help address the weaknesses that individual might bring to the table when they get hired, enhance the strengths that they have, and help develop their leadership and management abilities going forward. Finally, the end goal is to be in a position to make a sound judgment at some point in the future, especially when I retire, whether that person is ready to lead the community development department going forward. So with that, I would address any questions or concerns that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the council? Alderman Goodman?
Can you talk a little bit about the implications for compensation or job description that might be different between refilling the senior planner position and having an assistant community development director?
The senior planner that was most recently with the city was here for 18 years, so their salary, the position in the salary range was, fairly far along. It's not anticipated that refilling or creating and filling a new assistant community development director position is going to have a significant impact from a budgetary standpoint, especially in this first year where we have a vacancy in that position. But looking at some of the preliminary salary information that we've obtained from other communities, it doesn't seem like it's going to end up being a significantly higher salary range for the assistant community development director position than what the senior planner's position was. We're still in the process of working through that. If the city council or the committee of the whole is supportive of this, we would ultimately prepare a revised authorized strength ordinance and present that along with a recommended salary range to the city council at an upcoming city council meeting for review and approval. But from a job responsibility standpoint, the position is really going to cover most of all the things that the senior planner was responsible for, and probably have some more responsibility for management and for some of the economic development activities that I lead pretty much, as the primary staff person in the community development department on economic development.
Okay, and the difference that you're looking for here, that you're hoping to get, is a difference in job qualifications? Having someone more senior come? I mean, what kind of different job qualifications would
Job qualifications, somebody that has had experience in like a senior planner role, has had some experience with supervising people, but most likely would be looking to take that next step in their career towards an economic development director position. And this would be a very attractive position for that kind of interim step between where they're at today and where they might be. If we just rehire a community or a senior planner position, most likely we're not going to see a lot of candidates that are senior planners looking to make a lateral move, at least highly qualified candidates that might be desirable from our perspective. Most likely you would be seeing planners that are looking to make the next step in their career coming up to a senior planner position. So if we're looking to find a candidate for a potential replacement for myself at some point in time, I think we need to be focusing on creating this position so that we can hire a senior planner type person that's looking to get to that next level.
Okay, that all sounds very well thought out. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions? Alderman Davalos?
Yeah, just a couple thoughts. I really think this is very forward-thinking and very astutely forward-thinking and very particular to us, and what needs have been created, especially in the last couple of years. So I'm very much in favor of supporting this and doing whatever it takes to support community development and making this happen and figuring out what we do as a council to be supportive to you. I also think it has financial implications, and that I think we plant our pole in a deeper position with an assistant director, because it'd be nice to stop the bleed a little bit of positions, and I just think it could be more stable financially from a budget point of view, potentially, than not thinking about it or just doing a wait and see. So I appreciate the efforts and thought that have gone into this. I think it's critical for what we're doing in the community right now with community development and economic development, that we need to be very intentional and very on target with this. So thank you very much for this, just bringing this up, and here we go. So thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Anderson? Do you have anything?
I agree with the last comments. I do think this is very forward-looking. I'm supportive of everything except for Economic Development Director Mentzer's thought on retirement.
We're hoping for this position to be occupied for about 15 or 20 more years, I think, if it's approved. Thank you for your comment. Mayor has a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. As always, you're thinking ahead, and that's very much appreciated. It's also a hallmark, I think, of you and our staff, that when we're faced with some problems that we would prefer not to have, and looking for solutions, we don't just go back to the way we did things before. We always take a look at how to do it better going forward, and that's clearly what you've done here. We could have just gone and looked for another senior planner and went ahead, but instead you sat down and thought it through and looked ahead, and again, with the best interests of the community at heart. So thank you so much for that.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, we need a motion on this item. Alderman Goodman?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the City Council approve an amended authorized strength ordinance that reflects the staffing of a new Assistant Community Development Director position in lieu of refilling the existing vacant Senior Planner position.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. And the next topic is a discussion of City Council procedures for processing Plan Commission recommendations involving significant special development approvals. And again, Community and Economic Development Director Ron Mentzer will present this item. Ron?
Okay, thank you. As a follow-up to the relatively recent discussion that was had at the city council meetings in June, may have been bled over in early or late May, I don't remember exactly, but the Plan Commission had made a recommendation to the city council on the approval of the preliminary planned unit development plans and the platted subdivision for the Sundance Row Home project in Cantera Subarea E. When it was provided, that recommendation came forward and was included on the city council agenda. The developer was present virtually at that first city council meeting and was supposed to provide a PowerPoint type presentation of the project. For some unknown reason, they weren't able to make that happen and basically gave a verbal presentation trying to describe the project, how it fit on the property, and how the project was going to work, and especially as it related to the parking arrangement and the shared parking that was being proposed. It was somewhat, I think, challenging for the city council to get a good perspective of what was being presented to them. Ultimately, there seemed to be some questions and concerns about the information that had been provided to them, even some follow-up questions on the process by which the city council accepts and acts on Plan Commission's recommendations. So we felt it would be appropriate and informative to have this item on tonight's agenda, to talk or to give the City Council an opportunity to ask any questions and make any modifications to the systems that we currently use to provide information to the City Council regarding Plan Commission items and the process that City Council uses to take action and deal with those recommendations from the Plan Commission. So in the agenda packet backup, I prepared a pretty detailed memorandum dated July 8th that goes into quite a bit of detail on the various opportunities and steps along the way where staff and the Plan Commission or information related to Plan Commission items is made available to the City Council. And it's in a variety of forms. There is a lot of information that's provided to the City Council, either provided directly to the City Council virtually or made available to the City Council virtually. And then I also outlined in that memorandum the process that the City Council uses to deal with Plan Commission's recommendations if they're unanimous or if they're just, if they're not unanimous. They could still be a recommendation, but it's not unanimous from the Plan Commission. I would say in reviewing this information, there were a couple key takeaways that jumped out to me, especially thinking back through the context of the situation that we dealt with back in late May and early June, is that I really believe that the fact that Sundance was not able to provide their graphic presentation to the City Council really made it difficult for everybody to have some context of what they were proposing, and it would have been much better for everybody. I'm not saying it would have solved all of the concerns and confusion, but it would have been much better and much more clear to everybody what was being proposed at the time and what the City Council was being asked to consider. So one thing that we have committed to do going forward is whenever there's a significant development proposal that's coming forward out of the Plan Commission to the City Council, that the first time that shows up on the City Council's agenda is that we will provide either a copy of the developer's presentation in the agenda packet backup materials, or alternatively, we'll provide site plan documentation that helps the City Council have some graphic context to what's being proposed to the City Council the first time they see the Plan Commission's recommendation. And then the second item that I think is at least worth noting is when the City Council was kind of trying to figure out what to do with the Plan Commission's recommendation, because it wasn't clear exactly what the developer was asking for and how this parking arrangement was supposed to work, there was some confusion and I think reluctance to take any action on it, and ultimately the council referred it back to the Plan Commission for additional discussion. Now, I was at the Plan Commission meetings, every one of them that they discussed this project with, and it's my opinion that the Plan Commission thoroughly discussed the parking issue and made an informed recommendation. Now, you may not agree with it, but I think they made an informed recommendation. They had all the facts and information before them. They even considered some information that was brought forward by one of the Plan Commissioners right at the last minute. They considered it and didn't feel it, for the majority of them, it changed their position on the parking, and they made a recommendation to approve the project. I think that in hindsight, it would have been more productive, and it's not normal process, but it's certainly within the discretion of the City Council. If there's a question on a Plan Commission recommendation and there's missing information, or the City Council has a desire for additional information or analysis to be provided so you can make a informed decision on what to do with that recommendation, it can either be tabled until that information is provided, or alternatively, in this case, I think it would have been at least from my perspective, more appropriate to defer, to table action on the Plan Commission's motion and defer discussion of the motion of the Plan Commission's recommendation to a committee of the whole meeting. That would have given staff the ability to get the additional information that was missing, presented to the city council at a committee of the whole meeting with the appropriate graphic backup, so everybody had a much better understanding of what was being proposed and asked for. And I think that would have helped the city council make an informed decision. I think ultimately that happened in a, kind of a roundabout way when we worked our way through that, navigated through that process. We did provide some of that site plan information to the city council, and the city council ultimately did make a recommendation. But I would just hold out that in the future, if there's some question and concern about what information's coming forward from the Plan Commission, that one alternative that the city council could always consider is deferring it to a committee of the whole meeting to have the additional discussion of the item, and staff would then be able to prepare whatever additional information would be necessary to facilitate a informed discussion at the committee of the whole meeting. So with that, this is more of an informational item, except if the city council, upon review of the memo that was included in the agenda packet backup, feels that there's some part of the existing process that's not working that we need to work on addressing, whether there's additional information that the city council wants us to provide at a different point in time or a different form, we can certainly make adjustments to that. But when you look at it in paper, when I was writing it out, there's quite a bit of opportunity for the council to get information on Plan Commission's recommendations. And the last thing I would say, I guess, is that as always, I would encourage the city council members, if you're reviewing the city council agenda packet, backup materials, and you just don't feel that there's some piece of information that you need, to reach out to staff and we can provide that information. I mean, we could have made paper copies of any or all of the application documents for individual council meeting members. Some people might want that, some people don't, and it ends up being a lot of paper. So we're kind of caught in, who wants what. So the process that we have is evolved over time, trying to meet the needs and desires of the individual council members and the overall council. But that's not to say that it's perfect, that we can't adjust it either for everybody, or if an individual wants some specific information before they're asked to take action on a recommendation from the Plan Commission, that we can't provide that information to the city council. I mean, if it's an application document.
Okay, you're not looking for any particular action on this item, we're just opening it up for discussion, correct?
That's correct.
All right, any aldermen who have any questions or discussion regarding this topic? Alderman Davalos?
Yes, I do have a couple things, because this went off the rails for me when it happened. And so I am thrilled that this has been brought up at a meeting that we can talk about. Because I agree, I think there's a very detailed explanation. It was wonderful. And all I can do is speak for myself, what happened to me, because what I didn't know, that made it poignant in my case. I need to know more about this, because I have a sensitive issue, and that issue has been mentioned at these city council meetings before, and I've taken it to heart, that you really need to dig into these issues, because it's really sort of sometimes, and it happens, but sometimes it's a waste of time and money to vote yes on the first vote, or a committee of the whole, and it does happen legitimately, and then come up and vote no at the end after attorneys and people have spent a lot of time, unless something's changed. So I try very hard when I first hear about these things, to get all the questions answered so that I can make a vote I can try to stick with, either the first time at city council or at a committee of the whole meeting going on to. So that's part of my agenda. My second part of my issues are Plan Commission meetings, Zoning Board of Appeal meetings. I'm an alderman, but I'm also a citizen. So as an alderman, I don't like necessarily to ask questions at Planning Commission meetings, because I don't think that's my venue to ask questions. I certainly have no objection to myself or any other elected official coming forward as a private citizen. But if the aldermen are getting involved in discussions at Plan Commission, then it's sort of a open meetings thing, and I've sort of been warned about that. So I often don't speak up at Plan Commission meetings because I'm waiting for my shot at what an alderman does in the city council or committee of the whole. So that's just where I come with some questions. Let me just go through my list. I'm very glad on page 2 that you emphasize number 2, developer applicant presentation. I do agree with you. I think it was critical. I had read a lot of stuff. I had read minutes of Plan Commission meetings. I had looked at documents, and it was bothering me that it didn't come out of Plan Commission as a unanimous vote, because I was told, and it may not be, I may have misunderstood, that if it comes out as a unanimous vote of Plan Commission, it can go right on the consent agenda. It can certainly be brought off by an alderman, but it goes on there. And it doesn't have to go through committee of the whole. Although we have discussed Plan Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals issues at committee of the whole meetings. But I think that's a little different than what's happened here. So those were my confusing points. Thank you for emphasizing the presentation. I love the idea that it will be handed out, that we will have paper copies or at least in the agenda electronically, their presentation. So we can look at it ahead of time and really get the questions that we want addressed. Let's see here. That may be, yeah, I would like clarity on this unanimous vote. So for instance, on number 2 on page 3, you're talking about non-unanimous Plan Commission recommendations, and then it's a 2-step process. Can that 2-step process occur at one council meeting, or is it a 2-step process that goes committee of the whole council? So you could get a resolution from Plan Commission that's not a unanimous resolution, and within the same city council meeting, bring it up and get a vote on it, and then it can go on that same night's consent agenda. Is that?
No. I mean, it would be, the Plan Commission recommendations are automatically based on previous direction and policy of the city council, regardless of whether they're unanimous or not. The Plan Commission recommendations show up on the consent agenda portion of the city council. And like anything on the consent agenda, if the city council doesn't want to accept the Plan Commission's recommendation, whatever motion's on there, then they pull it off the consent and have a discussion, and then there's a vote specifically on that particular item, separate and apart from the rest of the consent agenda. The standing direction we have from the city council and we've been operating under is if the Plan Commission makes a recommendation and it's a unanimous recommendation, we have standing authorization from the city council to prepare the approval ordinance so that when the city council is set to receive the Plan Commission's recommendation, they also, the motion is typically worded, accept Plan Commission recommendation on da-da-da from the Plan Commission, waive second reading, and approve the ordinance. It was a unanimous recommendation from the Plan Commission. If it's not a unanimous recommendation from the Plan Commission, their recommendation still goes onto the consent agenda, but all it is accepting the Plan Commission's recommendation and directing the attorney to prepare the ordinance. And then the ordinance comes back at the next city council meeting for city council review and approval.
Right, and that's where I have my dilemma of voting yes for that when I might vote no. But that's always going to be the dilemma and the
Yeah,
discernment
and
of
that's-
an elected official. Or
That's
yeah.
the point where I think that if there needs to be more discussion, you don't have enough information to
Right.
get to a point where you're comfortable enough in saying, I want to accept the recommendation and directs the attorney to prepare the ordinance, that we either talk it out at the city council meeting, or if there's not enough information, we need to gather more information, do more analysis, and provide that to the city council, that would be an appropriate time to defer to a committee of the whole, so that additional detail can be provided, collected, provided, and then discussed in a committee of the whole format before the city council would take action on it.
Right, and my last question is about that very thing. I was not knowledgeable, it turns out, on tabling a motion. So my first thing is, I wish maybe we could have a little tutorial or a little sheet or a few, it's not just that, there's a few things I think that the council gets hosed up on. And I'll tell you right out, I thought when you tabled, you had to go back to a point of origin, Plan Commission. And that was the suggestion, and so I just voted yes. When what I really wanted was exactly what you're saying, I wanted to talk about it at a committee of the whole, I wanted to talk about it wherever it was appropriate, but I just had questions that weren't being answered in the presentation and that I was confused about. So that is another way that I got a little messed up on this. So that's, thank you for taking the time, I appreciate it.
Other, Alderman Goodman?
Yes, the word table is exactly what I wanted to talk about, because I think that that also went a little astray in this discussion. And so let me just put on my parliamentarian cap for a moment and make a couple of comments about that. First of all, there are a couple of magic words that people can use that are particular kinds of motions that there are rules about in Robert's Rules, that we have to follow certain procedures. And some of those magic words include things like motion to reconsider and motion to table. If you don't know what those are, don't use those kinds of motions. If you're comfortable using them, and if you've looked through the rules and you know what they mean, or if you want primers from the city attorney, or if we need to put together a memo, wonderful. But there are a million other kinds of motions that can be made that don't have those kinds of picky rules. So if any city council member, and I'm speaking specifically at this point to some of our newer members who haven't had to deal with these kinds of formalities before, if there are any kinds of motions that you want to make in order to get answers to your questions, you can do that. Just don't use any of those magic words. Say things like, I move that we talk about this later, or I move that staff comes back with the answers to my questions before we vote on this. Just sort of use generic language like that. And motions like that, if they need to be made more narrow or if staff needs more direction, they'll let you know at that point in the conversation. But feel free to make motions so that we can discuss them. When you make a motion to table, the worst thing about it is that one of those picky rules is we can't discuss it. So any other kind of motion that you make, any other kind of questions that you have that isn't subject to those picky rules, just throw it out there, say, this is what I'm trying to do, and then if you get somebody to second it, and if that motion passes, then you can have the kinds of information that you want brought back, and all of that is fine. But don't use words that sound fancy if you don't quite know what they mean. I guess that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Alderman Anderson?
I thought it was great to learn the ability to refer back to the committee of the whole. I did not realize that was a tool available to us, so I appreciate this being put together, and I appreciate Alderman Goodman's last comment, words to avoid, so thank you.
All right, thank you. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next item, and that is to request for an alderman to serve as council liaison on the Bicyclist and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. And Mayor Brummel will introduce and present this item. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Alderman Widener has represented us on the BPAC for 15 years. He also signed up to be on the new commission, IDEC, and found out that that transition was something that he had more excitement for, a new position that he had a little more interest in filling, and he was hoping that one of you would come forward to take his place on BPAC. It's a fun group. They do a lot of neat stuff. You have the bicycle rodeo. That's the main thing, I think. They have, over the years, got us a lot more trails and paths than we've ever had in the past. In their inception, they got us a bicycle-friendly designation at the bronze level. Only two other communities, Elmhurst and Naperville in DuPage County, have that level of success. So it's a very vibrant group that's involved in providing a very, very positive thing for the community. So, who would like to take Alderman Widener's place so that he can continue contributing at a different level on another commission? Okay, I'm going to take the first person that makes eye contact with me. Why is everyone looking at the ceiling? Nobody needs another assignment, eh? Well, you know, it's once a month, it's not a big thing. Somebody has to do it. Even if you take it as a temporary assignment, say you'll do it for a while. Let's get someone there. Who would do it for a while? Going once, going 23 times, I don't care how long it takes me. Can't go home till we have someone. It's not like Alderman Widener's bailing because he doesn't want to do the work anymore. He's taking on new work. So let's encourage him to do that by taking his place on BPAC. We need someone from the council. All right, think about it. Take some time. We also have to find a new chair for BPAC because the chair resigned. So we're in a little bit of transition there, but having an experienced person for the council would be good. Think about it. We'll bring it up again. Send me an email. Or maybe I'll just start calling people and lobbying. All right.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, review and file Community Development Department Fiscal Year 2022 Work Program Update. This is for our information. If anybody's got any questions or concerns, and I see Alderman Goodman has her hand up, so go ahead.
Just one question, which is I see the updating ward map based on the census data on this, and I do not believe that we have an alderman liaison for that role. I had to do it 10 years ago, so I know we appointed an alderman the last time. So while we're on the subject of getting city council liaisons to things, this just made me wonder.
Good thought. Administrator Coakley, do you have any comment on this?
Did I make eye contact? Yeah. Yeah, I would just say this, as opposed to some of the longer-term commitments, there's work involved. I think it's a good idea to have an alderman involved. It's aldermanic wards that are being redrawn, and otherwise staff would be doing that on their own, and you wouldn't see it till it got presented. So that's an excellent idea. Thank you for reminding us of that. Because of the census delay, well, that COVID thing, and a whole lot of other work and some staff changes, this has gotten put back on the burner right before the work plan got finalized. I know all of a sudden in conversation it came up. It's going to be a very important thing we need to do. We got to make sure the wards are balanced in population, just as the congressional districts and state representative districts. We just don't have the census data yet, so it's going to be a while yet. Everything was delayed nationwide, we all know that. We expect it in a few months that we should be getting certified population that can be broken down into the census tracts and blocks. I was going to say census wards, that's our definition, not theirs. So that can be done. We do have somebody on staff who's expert at GIS work, so he can help with that mapping system. I'm hoping, Andrew, they told you about that already. And so it's a good project, but it'll be really, I would say it's probably going to be a couple of months and a few meetings. It won't be as intense or long-term, is my point. It'll be a lot shorter than my conversation about it right now. So if somebody is interested and has some interest in where your boundaries are, who's in your wards and those things, it doesn't take the alderman will not have to have expertise in GIS mapping. We have staff that can provide that and figure out the boundaries. Sometimes if you look at the changes over the years, you've been around long enough, sometimes to make the adjustments work, it gets a little funny. I remember a former employee, Joyce Wyman, you all may remember, lived in Summer Lakes in a cul-de-sac. With the last census block, somehow it got split, the ward boundary got split right in the middle of her cul-de-sac because that's where the census boundary was. She said, all of a sudden I'm in Ward 1, my neighbor's in Ward 2, or something like that. So it can get a little bit goofy on the macro sense if you look at it, but it's based on science and fact. I will give you a note about coming attractions. We're still working with the city attorney to figure this out, but most people that have moved into town recently or are moving into town as our new development residential units are being built, we're not here on April 1st, 2020, so they didn't get counted in that census. So whoever gets practice with this word remapping, we may be doing that again in a few years with a special census. We have to figure out how that all works, but there's somewhere around 1,000 or 1,500 plus people that will be moving into Ward 1 with all those new folks. So right now, we just need somebody for right now. I guarantee you, am I doing a better job of filibustering than the mayor did with
Well, this
getting
just
volunteers?
begs the question that since Alderman Goodman brought it up, has the experience from 10 years ago and did a efficient job at that situation, whether she would be interested in occupying this position once again as it came forward.
Okay, but I'll tell you, it was only 2 meetings last time, so.
Quick, make a motion before she changed her
All right.
mind.
All right, we have a party that's interested. If there's no objection from the council, we'll try to make that happen. Thank you, Alderman Goodman, for stepping up. Administrator
Do we,
Copeland?
do we need a motion?
It's always appropriate for the council to vote on that representative, so it's very clear for everybody who's doing what. This isn't final action, so I think that it comes under an item on the agenda. I think that could come from this meeting. We'll put it on the council meeting for next agenda. So I would suggest that you do a motion and
Okay.
a vote on that.
Someone care to phrase a motion? Alderman Berry?
I'd like to make a motion to designate Alderman Goodman for updating the ward map based on the final 2020 census data.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Alderman Goodman. So we've reviewed and filed that work program update, and we're on to item number 9, to review and file the Community Development Department Economic Development Activity Report. Is there anyone who has any comments or questions regarding that report? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and file that. And our last item on this evening's agenda is to review and file the always excellent bi-monthly code enforcement activity report. Are there any questions or any discussion regarding that? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and file that report, and with thanks to Director Menser and the crew at the Community Development Department. Thank you. And that concludes all the business we have for tonight's meeting. We have one last motion to make. Alderman Goodman.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Good night, everyone, and thank you, staff, for all the materials and backup and information for tonight's meeting. Appreciate it.
That all.